Driving across country and back to my farm in Indiana, and while my wife has the wheel, I thought I'd give my thoughts on Joe Biden's 100-day press conference / speech last night as it pertains to the business of agriculture. On the plus side, we heard a president, for the first time in my 51 years, say he's going to pay farmers to plant cover crops. All in all, a good thing. I have said, and I said in my book Food Fear, that we will look back one day at all of the months we leave our most precious asset, soil, barren and vulnerable to wind and water erosion. We're going to say, man, that's really like we used to treat sickness with leeches. So I do believe cover crops are a big part of the future, and if we can tie it into carbon sequestration, that's ultimately a good thing, because then agriculture is playing nice and playing into the climate change agenda, which is going to get a lot of money thrown at it. So ultimately, I'd say that's a positive thing for the 350 million cropland acres in the United States of America, that we're going to be doing some paid-for stewardship. However, I think on the environmental thing, we are probably going to have a net negative. There's a tremendous amount of pressure being put on this administration from the harder left, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes, the Cory Bookers, etc. And what that might look like is then restrictions on livestock production, sizes of animal feeding operations, or worse yet, even prohibitive regulations on what we have to spend money on for such things as methane capture or our ability to even produce at scale. What else do I see from an environmental standpoint? I see, again, a lot more push from the hard left that seems to have a big influence on this administration that could hurt our ability to use the best technology as it might relate to chemistry and other practices, because this thing seems to be getting a lot of traction as agriculture is more increasingly tied into the whole climate change thing, which is at a fever pitch. What else did I see that I think is good or bad for the business of agriculture? The stepped up basis and the capital gains issue. This is being framed as being a tax on rich people that's going to help the middle class, but we in agriculture tend to hold many of our assets, obviously, in real estate. We don't live large. We tend to live very, very modestly. However, we usually have a fair amount of holdings. A lot of our value is out the window there in that real estate, right? This is going to be a bad thing for us in terms of passing on the transitional wealth of a farm to keep our family in the business. We've all heard about that, but I see something that's possibly even worse. If we're going to spend $6 trillion, and I just want to put that in perspective, the United States spent $4.1 trillion in real dollars to defeat the Axis powers of Germany and Japan. And real dollars, we have spent 1/3 more than that already, and we're poised to spend that much again if the administration's policies are enacted. So we've got a lot of spend, right? Well, where is that tax money going to come from to pay for it? I fear that worse than just capital gains taxes, and worse than just using stepped up basis or increased income taxes or increased corporate taxes, I believe there's ultimately going to be a wealth tax or a big push for wealth taxes. These have happened in places like Europe, etc., where you just say, okay, if you're over $1 million of net worth, we're going to each year attach some of that as taxation, because after all, the wealthy people don't need all that wealth. What does that mean for agriculture? Again, if you own several hundred acres in Iowa, there's a tremendous amount of wealth there, held wealth, and now you're talking about obligating that each year with a wealth tax. So I would be very concerned looking forward, not just about the stepped up basis and capital gains, because I believe that might just be phase one. So what did I see ultimately? I see an administration that's pushing a green agenda, which we knew was coming, that could involve agriculture in using a carrot, not a stick, meaning we get incentivized to do practices on our farms and ranches that are ultimately good, and we're compensated to do so. I also, with the environmental agenda, see that we will be greatly impacted by what we're allowed to do. You know, Waters of the United States was a similar example a few years ago. What if we have those sorts of regulations on what we're allowed to do on our own property or the practices? And then again, on the money thing, be concerned about the stepped up basis, the capital gains tax, because so much of our wealth is held for the long haul in agriculture. But what about a yearly or annual wealth tax that could be looming? These are just some of my thoughts and predictions. What did you see, and what do you think about the business of agriculture and moving forward under this administration? Damian Mason, thanks for tuning in.